in the 70s, the black community and the inner city, the kids have the both parents in the 70s.
Yeah.
And then in the 80s, they only had the mother. They lived with a single mother.
Yeah.
And then in the 90s, they lived with their grandparents. SubhanAllah.
Yeah.
That's
And yeah, that's the evolution of, the systems that are systematically put in place in our communities. It's a gradual destruction of the infrastructure of the home. Once the home is destroyed, everything else that follows is just, a prerequisite to, the initial impact. So, because of my family and my parents, rather, my mom was 20 years old when she had me. My father was over a decade older than her, and she was, running with one of the most notorious, drug dealers at the time was a guy by the name of Nicky Barnes. And my father was a part of, his organization, which was called the Council. So they were very instrumental in all of the things that took place in Harlem, as far as drug dealing, and everything revolved around drug dealing. So this was the origin of, my parents, and my introduction to, you know, who I would eventually become. Now, my grandparents, they were very stand up people. They're very honest people, good people, you know, still dabbled a little bit here and there because back then, to run, play numbers, which was illegal off track betting or something like that, or crap games and stuff like that. This was more novelty. It's crazy because it was considered something novelty, which is also a criminal act, or also something that was illegal, but it was more novelty. It was more, it was same. You put in the same breath as playing bingo. Now, bingo is not illegal, but playing craps and blackjack and then any type of legal gambling and so on and so forth. But everyone indulged in it. You know what I'm saying? Like when you went to look for a job, you didn't go to McDonald's and stuff like that. You look for a job with the local drug dealer and whatever they had to offer because they ran real organizations. They ran real corporate structured operations that enable people to have certain roles or positions in that organization, whether it was something intense or whether it's something minimal. But this is the way the streets were structured, you know? So you're absolutely right. That statistic is extremely accurate because once crack hit, this stripped the fathers, and some of the mothers as well, you know. But it immediately stripped the fathers. It really immediately broke the men down to where there were a lot of single parents, single mothers trying to raise men, and this is why we have a lot of the issues today with the youth. A lot of the youth today lack that masculine presence, or they lack that man figure or father figure that will help rear them to becoming young, respectable, honorable men. But if you're raised by a woman, who's, and may Allah reward the women, the believing women, and may Allah guide the, the non-believing women who had to endure this struggle, is that what happens, they're trying to multitask because ultimately she has to be the breadwinner, the provider, the nurturer, the cultivator, and she also has to be the disciplinary. Now we know she may be successful in all those other spaces, but when it comes to disciplinary, a lot of women don't have the ability to discipline young men, especially juvenile, adolescent men. After a while, you get numb to a butt whipping. You know what I'm saying? The belt don't hurt no more. She trying to punch him and she, might break her hand or, sprain her wrist trying to punch, an adolescent growing into being a man. So the disciplinary fear and the factor of disciplinary tactics become very obsolete. And next thing you know, the next discipline that child or that young man is going to endure is either going to be death or prison, or something that comes from, consequences involved in the streets. So it is a cycle. It is something that is definitely repetitive, and it continues to this very day that, many of the youth are just challenged with a lot of things they lack in order to understand true quality of life, in order to understand balance between parents, and actually have male examples that they can look up to and try to imitate in righteousness and piety. So
SubhanAllah.
there's a lot going on.